We are now ready to consider the following question. In a chemical compound, what is the content of each element that it is made up of? Before we answer, we must first establish what exactly we mean by content. Consider the example of aluminum oxide, empirical formula aluminum 2O3. If we ask how much aluminum there is in this compound, we may actually mean two different things. We might be interested in how many atoms of aluminum there are in an aluminum oxide sample. Alternatively, we might be interested in how many grams of aluminum there are in the aluminum oxide sample. Now, the law of constant composition tells us that regardless of the sample of the chemical compound that we take, the ratios between the numbers of atoms of different elements will be the same. Therefore, it makes sense to ask what percentage of the atoms in the sample of aluminum oxide are aluminum, or what percentage of the total mass of the sample of aluminum oxide is due to aluminum atoms. These percentages would be the same for all samples of aluminum oxide. If we found them, then for any sample of aluminum oxide of any size, we could easily calculate the total number of aluminum, that is the number of moles of aluminum or atoms of aluminum, and the total mass of aluminum. So let's do this. First, consider the simplest unit of aluminum oxide. It consists of 2 aluminum atoms and 3 oxygen atoms. What is the percentage of aluminum atoms in this simplest unit? Pause the video for a moment and try to figure it out yourself. Well, there are a total of 5 atoms in this unit, 2 aluminum and 3 oxygen. Therefore, the percentage of aluminum atoms is the number of aluminum atoms divided by the total number of atoms multiplied by 100%, so 2 over 5 multiplied by 100%, and that is 40%. In any sample of aluminum oxide, 40% of the atoms will be aluminum, and the remaining 60% of the atoms will be oxygen. Take, for instance, 1 mole of aluminum oxide. In other words, Avogadro's number of its simplest units that each consist of 2 aluminum atoms and 3 oxygen atoms. The total amount of atoms in 1 mole of aluminum oxide will be 5 moles. There will be 2 moles, 40% of the total number of aluminum atoms, and 3 moles, 60% of the total number of oxygen atoms. The percentage of atoms of one element among the total number of atoms that make up a chemical compound is called the mole percent for the element in that compound. Now let's consider what percentage of the mass of aluminum oxide is made up by aluminum atoms. Again, consider the simplest unit of aluminum oxide that consists of 2 aluminum atoms and 3 oxygen atoms. What is its mass and what percentage of it are aluminum atoms responsible for? Pause the video for a moment and try to figure it out yourself. The simplest unit of aluminum oxide consists of 2 aluminum atoms and 3 oxygen atoms. The total mass of this unit, in other words, the molecular mass of aluminum oxide, is the sum of the masses of the individual atoms that make it up. In the periodic table, we can find the atomic mass of aluminum, 26.982 atomic mass units, and the atomic mass of oxygen, 15.999 atomic mass units. The molecular mass of aluminum oxide is then 2 times the atomic mass of aluminum, 26.982 atomic mass units, plus 3 times the atomic mass of oxygen, 15.999 atomic mass units, and when we add those numbers up, we get 101.961 atomic mass units. What is the total mass of aluminum in this simplest unit of aluminum oxide? It is the mass of two aluminum atoms, 2 times 26.982 atomic mass units, or 53.964 atomic mass units. What fraction of the simplest unit of aluminum oxide is the mass of aluminum responsible for? We can determine that by dividing the total mass of aluminum atoms by the total mass of all atoms in the simplest unit and multiplying by 100%. So 53.964 atomic mass units divided by 101.961 atomic mass units and multiplied by 100%, which gives us 52.926%. In any sample of aluminum oxide, aluminum atoms are responsible for 52.926% of the total mass of the sample. Try calculating yourself the total mass of aluminum atoms in 1 mole of aluminum oxide. The percentage of the total mass of a chemical compound that atoms of one element are responsible for is called the mass percent for that element in that compound. Notice that even though aluminum atoms make up only 40% of the total number of atoms in aluminum oxide, they are responsible for 52.926% of its mass. It is because aluminum is a heavier element than oxygen. Its atomic mass is 26.982 atomic mass units versus only 15.999 atomic mass units for oxygen. Consequently, 2 aluminum atoms have a larger mass than 3 oxygen atoms.